I was dealing with some health issues throughout my 20s, some hormonal and digestive issues. Western medicine wasn't really helping solve these problems. That's ultimately what led me into discovering acupuncture and Chinese medicine, discovering other integrative medicine practices. We live in a society where Western medicine is the dominant medical paradigm, and that's not going away, and it's so useful and helpful. But I think adding in this other layer and another framework that someone can view their health and maybe help themselves in a more preventative or holistic way. Even considering like leaving the salary that I had at the time, going from that to like actually no money, that was truly terrifying, like absolutely terrifying.
Welcome back to Passion Project Pending. This is your host, Rosie. If you're new here, I'm so happy you decided to tune in. Passion Project Pending is your new source of truth for what entrepreneurship really looks like: the good, the bad, the inevitably ugly. So according to a poll in 2021, 92% of the people surveyed who seriously considered starting a business did not follow through. So the top 5 reasons that keep you from starting a business, according to this poll, the top 5 fears. The first is failure. Second is imposter syndrome. Rejection is inevitable. Lack of experience or education, and then lack of funds. That is a huge one. There are so many aspects to starting a business. There's also a wide range of businesses you could start. There's also this idea of imposter syndrome and the mental block I believe a lot of us face when considering turning a passion project into a business or just doing anything out of the ordinary in terms of career and expectations that we tend to carry with us from childhood to adulthood. The conversations on this podcast will help you see how others got started on a dream and turn their dream into reality through perseverance, sacrifice, and determination. We love. So welcome. Thanks again. And let's get into today's vibe. Lauren Dunn grew up in the Bay Area and attended college at the University of San Diego. Once graduated, she had various jobs, including working at an art gallery, in events at Stanford, and then in sales and customer experience at a tech company in San Francisco. She began to seek out a career in East Asian and integrative medicine because of her own journey in healing her hormones and digestion. Alternative medicine was a powerful catalyst in reframing how she viewed health and the different ways you can heal. Ultimately, she just really wanted to help people. Seeing the effects of the pandemic greatly brought that out. She saw the intense need for people to start viewing their health in a different way, and she wanted to be a part of that movement. She is currently studying at Acupuncture and Integrative Medicine College, AIMC, in Berkeley. It is a 3.5-year program for which she will receive her Master's of Science in East Asian Medicine. Once licensed, her titles will be LAC Licensed Acupuncturist and Integrative Medicine Practitioner. In this episode, we discuss more about Lauren's journey to leave a career in tech for the program she's in currently, the different modalities of East Asian medicine, and more. It's an excellent listen for anyone considering exploring a different career than their current situation, and anyone curious about acupuncture or other alternative medicine options. If anyone wants to book an appointment with her in her student clinic at Berkeley, has any questions, or just wants to connect, they can message her on her Instagram at Numa Healing, and I will link this all in the show notes. Could you please tell me a bit about your background in working in, I know you worked in an art gallery, I know you worked in events at Stanford, and then in sales and customer experience at a tech company, and then ultimately your decision to pursue this career in East Asian and integrative medicine after all of those experiences. So kind of what do you think ultimately led you down this path in your words?
Yeah, so clearly I've leapfrogged quite a bit across different industries, and I'd say growing up and then even processing going through college of what I wanted to do, I never had this definitive goal in mind. I never knew exactly what I wanted to do. So I approached college and my early career just trying to explore the things that were interesting to me and that interested me. That's ultimately like what led me into those various jobs. I was taking bits and pieces of things that I was connecting to and really liked, and then just going from there. And I grew up in the Bay Area, so a lot of my family, a lot of my friends, a lot of my friends' parents were all in the tech industry, and so that to me was a field that I thought that could work well for me. A lot of my family's in sales, and so I knew that I love talking to people and love being around people and solving problems, and so I was leading with that. My interest was people, so being in a people facing role is what I was like gravitating towards. And I studied communication and marketing in college, and so that's ultimately then why I took the job at the art gallery and then at Stanford in events and then in sales. And so I was piecing together these little things that were, like I said, interesting to me, and I just felt was highlighting skills of mine and like working with people. But I knew those things weren't necessarily my passion or what I felt could be my contribution on earth. And I then began to sort of explore and uncover and really get honest about like the things that were really like lighting me up and that I was really passionate about, and the things that was occupying my time like outside of those jobs that I had. And that really then centered around like health and wellness. Like I was dealing with some health issues like throughout my 20s, some hormonal and digestive issues, and I was seeking all these alternatives to Western medicine because Western medicine wasn't really helping solve these problems. So then that's ultimately what led me into discovering acupuncture and Chinese medicine, discovering like other integrative medicine practices, and that just like became my life. And I was just consuming anything I could about different medical systems, different ways to heal yourself, and that's just really where all my interests that began to center around. And then that sort of trickled into helping other people in my life. I just love being able to talk with and help friends and family who are also going through various health problems. So that's what ignited that thought in my mind of like, oh, I think I am in the wrong industry. I think I was noticing how much time I was spending caring for my health and other people's health, that this light bulb moment went off where I thought, okay, I think I need to be in some form of a healthcare field. And in the pandemic at the time, it was just a accumulation of all these things coming to a head where I was having a bit of dissatisfaction in my current job in sales, and I just like knew it wasn't like aligning to like my personal like life philosophy, like my job wasn't. And I really wanted to connect to that because we spend so much time at work. So I really wanted to be doing something that I felt like was my unique contribution and like really where my like interests were. And so because the pandemic allowed this like time and space, and especially like all this attention like around our health, we really had to look at our health in a different way because we're suffering around us. And I think it left people in this state of like, what can I do to help myself and my family members? And it doesn't really seem like Western medicine is helping solve all these problems. And because I had that time and space and was thinking about that, I started exploring what other career paths could look like for me in healthcare field. I ended up pursuing a career in traditional East Asian and integrative medicine because it's a blend of Western and Eastern practices, which I like applying ancient healing modalities like in a modern context. Like that's just what makes sense. Like we live in a society where Western medicine is the dominant medical paradigm, and that's not going away, and it's so useful and helpful in so many ways. But I think adding in this other layer and another like framework that someone can view their health and maybe help themselves in a more preventative or holistic way, that was so intriguing to me. And so that's why I ended up taking a class at the school that I'm at now. And we can get into this a little bit as well, but I didn't quit my job when I started school. So I ended up like talking to a bunch of people that were in the field and then at the school, and I would listen in on classes. And then I ended up taking a class just to really get a feel for if this was aligned and it was something I really wanted to commit to, but also having that kind of safety net of
Yeah.
still having a job while I figured that out was helpful. And that's such a long-winded answer, but that's
So it sounds like you discovered this passion, and the more you got involved with it, the harder it was to like stay in your previous role and see a future in that. Would you say that's accurate?
yeah, no, it really is. And then just comparing my the way that I was in school and the way that I was getting work done and learning, like how much happier I felt and how connected I felt to it was such a huge light bulb moment for me of realizing, oh, this is how I'm supposed to feel when I am in alignment. And I wasn't prior. I was not in alignment in my previous careers. I like never felt that flow state that like everything was interesting and lighting me up and I couldn't get enough. I never felt that before starting school. So yeah, at this point I was like, yeah, there's no going back. I found my thing.
Yeah, I'm glad you found that. It's kind of scary to think about how like we can be in those things and then you what you don't know until you're out of it that it just was like really not for you. But I also wanted to ask, you mentioned you started school or this program or class when you were still working. So how was that experience? Like, did it throw your life out of balance a little bit, like juggling all those responsibilities? And then did you ultimately leave your role so you could spend all your time on this?
Yeah, this is like a complicated one because it was at the height of the pandemic. We are, sheltering in place. No one's leaving their house. So in a way, being in school was this like respite. I always say that word wrong. Respite from just,
Oh, I thought it was
um,
respite. Oh, wow.
I know, right? I say so many things wrong, but it's okay. But yeah, so it just felt like this place for me to go in a time that felt really scary and sad. So it didn't feel overwhelming being in school at the same time as working, because also the nature of what my job was at the time, the company had totally scaled back what we were doing. So I was not even working that much, like no one was. So I did have all this extra time. And also, I should note that I was really communicative with my company actually about this transition, and they were so supportive. Like, to be honest, like that I couldn't even believe that they were as supportive as they were, and understanding that I was kind of balancing these things. So like that was a huge blessing, to be able to have that support. They just were really flexible with me as I was kind of going through this. And I think they knew that it was something that I was kind of learning and discovering for myself. And I think they thought that I was just trying this out and then I would come back full term or come back full time working for them. So I think that also may have been why that they were really accommodating. So it was sort of challenging at first, like balancing it, but there was enough time to do it. So then as the years went on, because my program is a 3.5, 4 year program. And as the time went on, I actually transitioned to part-time working. And I did that because I needed some form of income while in school. So I carried that on until actually I only just stopped working for them in June. So for pretty much close to 3 years of me being in school, I was working part-time. But as I've like said to like many family and friends now, like reflecting back, I think I was like holding on to that because I was scared to totally jump in and just commit to like focusing like on myself in school and focusing on my future business. So I was holding myself back, and now that I have this like spaciousness of like just fully being one track minded into my business and finishing school, just the spaciousness that I have like so much more creativity. I have so many more insights like coming through, and I'm like actually like building more things out now that I have that time. So yeah, I think the time commitment like took away from my time in school and building my business, but I also was doing it for some security reasons and monetary reasons. So
That's really helpful of you to share. I feel like you answered a couple questions that I usually ask, which is like, what's something you wish you maybe had done like differently looking back, now knowing what you do now? And then also what you mentioned about the spaciousness you feel now that you have let that go completely and the fear of getting to that point. It's like the spaciousness part, it's like a suspicion I have that like one day should I get to that point myself with whatever I'm pursuing, I'm
Yeah.
like, what would that feel like? That would just feel amazing if I could devote all my time. And I know that I've had a relatively short career, 3 years in the grand scheme of life and all that, but it does feel frustrating to know you want to do something, but be like staying in that space due to very valid reasons like
Yes.
security,
Yeah.
stability, but it's just like the burning just gets like more intense. So, but I'm really curious to ask you more about like the program in depth and then also what's involved in like building your business. But before I do that, I wanted to ask you like what sort of experiences you had with the things that you're learning, like acupuncture and East Asian like practices prior to deciding to pursue this further that maybe encouraged you in terms of like things you were encountering with your health and stuff like that. Hopefully that wasn't, I feel like that was very verbose.
No, 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 not at all. So yeah, as I mentioned in like throughout like my early 20s, I was dealing with some like digestive and hormonal changes and was actually like was struggling with a lot of acne and a lot of stomach problems, which like we know like the mind gut connection, like those things are so intertwined. And yeah, so I was on all different forms of like hormonal birth control. They were putting me on Accutane and spirulactone and like all of these like really like intense like pharmaceuticals, and I would go on them and things would clear up with my gut or my skin or whatever it might be, and then I'd come off and it would just come back with a vengeance. And I had so much like dysbiosis going on in my gut. I had a lot of bacterial overgrowths, and I just felt terrible. I felt awful. And so I specifically sought out integrative medicine practices to help heal myself. And one was like going to see an acupuncturist. And I, at the same time, was working with an integrative medicine practitioner. And they were able to run a lot of diagnostic lab work to show what was really going on. So from that, I was then prescribed some medical grade like herbal formulas, clear out the dysbiosis going on in my gut and to like heal my acne and to balance my hormones. So that was huge because that was like uncovering actually medically what was going on internally. But then working with an acupuncturist, I felt like that was very soul healing for me. And as I learned throughout that process of the mind body connection, and in East Asian medicine, it is just a concept of that we can't address our healing, the physical manifestations, without addressing what's going on with our emotional state. And I feel like I was living in such like a high anxiety, stressful, like putting a lot of stress and like pressure on myself and trying to fix and control things, and just putting all of these, just putting so much like anxiety and like fear and, being upset about like my skin not being where I want it to be, and like my stomach feeling terrible all the time. And yeah, so working with an acupuncturist and actually taking that time to like tune into myself, to put my body into this rest and relaxation mode, and just learn how everything is so connected. That was really powerful in my own healing journey. And just like understanding that like just one thing isn't the cause of what's going on. Like I have to address everything from my sleep to what I'm eating to who I'm surrounding myself with, how I'm processing my stress. And yeah, so I think it was like those bits and pieces that like really drew me back to studying this eventually, because it was so powerful in my own healing journey.
Wow, so it sounds like you came to understand your health through a much more holistic lens, not just like treating the symptoms,
Yeah, exactly.
understanding everything. Oh, you mentioned something dysbiosis? Is that what you
Yes.
said? What does that
hmm
mean?
Well, it just means that essentially, like the microbiome of your gut, there's a lot of bacteria and things like going on there. And then the dysbiosis is like essentially when something is not optimal, it's offset. So there was just too much bad bacteria in my gut that was causing me to experience all these bloating, fatigue, those
Mm.
types of digestive system or symptoms. Yeah, it was off basically.
How did you like know it was off? Like how did you like how for someone listening or me, like how would you come to understand that that was an issue that might be causing other things?
Yeah, I mean that's a good point because that it just you have to like tune in, but sometimes you don't know what's normal and what's not. But I would say that mine particularly, it felt it was obvious. There were the symptoms that I was experiencing that were obvious. Like I was constantly bloated, constantly. It didn't even matter what I ate, what I didn't eat. I was always bloated. Sorry, TMI. Very gassy. Had very weird bowel movements, and my skin was inflamed. My skin, yeah, I was breaking out on my face. I would break out on my chest, on my back. I was just getting, my body was like having this reaction or it was trying to like purge itself. And so I knew something was off and I felt terrible. I was tired all the time. I had really, yeah, really low energy. I just did not have a zest for life. And
Mm.
yeah. So it was just accumulation of like all these things. I just didn't feel like me. I just felt off. And I could physically feel it in my body.
I see. And then, so it felt really off. How did you come to almost get a diagnosis of this? It's like the bacteria that's the problem here.
I just like actually had no idea what I was supposed to do about this. So I just started like Googling. And I knew that the Western medical doctors weren't helping me because they were just like trying to put me on a different birth control or trying to give me some like
Mm.
intense like acne medication. I just didn't want to do that. They made me feel terrible. And so I remember one night like crying because I was like so bloated. I'm like on Google like natural solutions to like healing IBS or like how to heal my acne like holistically, things like that. And so whatever was popping up, I was just reading article after article about like various things that people did. And so a lot of the advice essentially was to like work with an integrative medicine doctor, work with a naturopath, work with an acupuncturist. So I was like, great, I'm going to try all of that. I'm going to work with all these people. And then it was through the integrative medicine doctor that I worked with in Palo Alto. And she ran all of this lab work. Like I had to do stool tests. I did this thing called like a SIBO breath test, which that's what tests for this bacterial overgrowth. Did a bunch of blood work. And yeah, all my results came back. And she was like, yep, you have this overgrowth called SIBO. You have high liver enzymes, which are contributing to your acne. You have elevated testosterone, which is contributing to your acne. And you have all the signs and symptoms of like IBS. So basically, she was the one that gave the diagnosis of
Okay.
that.
Okay. I have high liver enzymes. So I'm
Do
like,
you?
yeah. Yeah. I'm like slightly concerned, but it's fine. They suggested a change in diet, which is fair.
Yeah, and I'm sure they probably tested. Did they test like hormones at all? And did they test like cholesterol levels and all that
This
stuff?
was just routine blood work. So, yes,
Okay.
cholesterol. I don't know about hormones. I don't think hormones, but like cholesterol, like HDL, LDL, stuff
Yeah.
like that. And then a bunch of other stuff, but those were the ones that were slightly irregular. So,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And so it's actually really interesting with the tests that are run typically like through your primary doctor, like the markers that will come up, like they don't give you like the whole picture of what is going on.
mm,
And so a lot of times like that results in you having to work with a naturopath or functional medicine doctor, someone that can run more like diagnostic lab testing. And unfortunately, like it's so frustrating that this isn't part of our medical system where we can have these like really comprehensive tests like covered under our insurance, but then we have to pay out of pocket for these things. So I had to pay out of pocket for all of these like really expensive lab tests, but that was the only way I was able to like definitively find out what was going on
Yeah.
with my health. So yeah, and I wonder, I bet you probably were like, okay, you told me I have to change my diet, but like why? What is like the root cause of that?
Yeah, I think
Really?
I'm slightly concerned because, like, I've never been that unhealthy, and like, I exercise regularly, and I'm also 25. So
Right.
I'm like, oh dear me, like, what did I do to get here? And it's really hard. And I think with any health thing, I've been lucky where I haven't had tons of issues. It's just like a weight on you once you have knowledge about something that is off and a doctor
Hmm.
says it's off. It's like you're kind of now like, well, what else should I be doing? And then you're taking like their advice, and
Right.
you don't know how like legitimate that is. And it's almost like you're kind of out there for yourself because everything is
Sure.
expensive, everything has like maybe hidden costs, and it can be stressful.
Yeah. Well, on a sidebar off note, if you want to talk about that stuff, we can. I can like look at your tests and let you know like what you should ask for next time, like what tests and things. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I guess I am going to ask you about your program, but we were just talking about how you had to pay for those tests. I really liked one of the resources you sent me ahead of this, which was like all the different types of care that people can pursue, whether it's like group resource or student
Yeah.
clinic or private practice, or I forgot the other one, insurance covered practices.
Mhm.
And then you were talking about how, although you'd have to pay for these private practices, it could still be, those costs could be very little compared to down the line costs that could come up as you're then like treating symptoms that come up because you never dealt with the origin. At least it sounded like that. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that, like in your words.
I think this is like such an important aspect of East Asian and integrative medicine is that it's preventative medicine. And it's meant to one help you like deal with things that are coming up so that you're not down the line like I have this really severe chronic illness and having to backtrack where like symptoms might be arising and you're able to tackle them better as they come up. And yeah, so the different like ways specifically that you can like work with an acupuncturist or like work within the scope of East Asian medicine is, and I think I had shared all that stuff with you too, but so you can start by working in a community acupuncture setting. So basically you go into a room with other people, you're fully clothed, you kind of sit in these recliner chairs and they needle points that are just like visible like on your hands, on your feet, lower legs, in the ear. And that's really nice because it feels like this community healing vibe and it's much more affordable and accessible to people. So you pay sliding scale from anywhere from like 20 to like 60. So that's helpful if you're like new to acupuncture or have budget constraints. That's a good choice. And then you can always try to go through your insurance as well. Like some insurance plans now cover acupuncture treatments. I think with the current ones that are in place, you get like 10 treatments covered over 10 months. The tricky thing is that sometimes it's hard to actually find a provider that's covered by your insurance. And not to mention, you want to connect with your practitioner. And if you get limited options, sometimes it's hard to find someone that's going to fit exactly what you are after. And not to mention, currently, insurance companies really only cover certain use cases. So if you're coming in for pain, that's the most common one and pretty much the only one that's covered. If you go in for anything psycho-emotional like anxiety, that's just like not something yet that the Western model like knows how to code for and cover. So it's frustrating. There's not every single use case gets covered under insurance. And then you can work with a local acupuncture college. So I go to AIMC, Acupuncture and Integrative Medicine College, and that is in Berkeley. And we have a student clinic. So a part of my program is half my didactic classroom learning classes, and then the other half is the student clinic. So I work as a practitioner in the student clinic, but then I'm supervised by a licensed acupuncturist who's been in the field for like many years. So we have our student clinic open year round. We have breaks in at the end of each term. It's only like a 2-week break. And then again, you can get really accessible and affordable care coming in for treatments. And so you one have to be cool with being treated by a student learner. Obviously, you're being supervised. It's like very professional, very safe. And yeah, so you have to take that into consideration. But what's great about it is it's really affordable. Also, you're able to really like work really intimately like with the patient and your practitioner. So like you really feel like someone is putting a lot of time and attention like into your care. And it's not like community acupuncture where you're in a room with others. It would just be like me and you and then my supervisor. So that's a great option for people, and it's fun for me if people want to come try it. Like I need practice, and yeah, I think it's just a great way for people to try it. And then the last way that you can get acupuncture is working with someone one-on-one through their private practice. Most acupuncturists, or I shouldn't say most, but a lot of them end up opening their own practice. That's what I want to do one day. So I'll have like my own clinic and patients will come and see me there eventually. And the cost with that can be a little more expensive. You're probably going to be paying closer to $100 for a session. And however, what happens in those sessions is so many things. Like we do really intensive intakes. We perhaps do diagnostic testing if that's helpful. We'll use all these other like modalities that potentially would work for your case. So I don't think a lot of people know that besides acupuncture, there are many different modalities that can be used under the scope of East Asian medicine. So that could be herbal therapies, so prescribing like an herbal prescription to help with whatever it is that can work in conjunction with like your acupuncture treatment. Then there's also manual therapies such as cupping, which I think a lot of people are familiar with, like the glass cups on the back that helps remove stagnation and pain. So that's really useful for like sports injuries or any type of pain in the body. Gua sha, which I think many people have seen facial gua sha, which is like the tool that's used on the face. So there's the facial version, but then there's also this body scraping technique where you actually use the tool and scrape along. It's typically done on the back. And again, that's for injuries, to break up any stagnation or tight tissues. There's also a form of body work called Tui Na that can be used. And then let's see what else. There's also dietary therapies. So in East Asian medicine, a dietary therapy would be catered towards a specific individual. There's no one size fits all. And that's actually true for the treatment as a whole. Your treatment will be specifically catered to you. You can't copy and paste these treatments onto every single person. That's just, it's so focused in on the individual. So the dietary therapy could be something that looks like catering it to your specific like constitution, or catering towards the seasons, like addressing like what are things to eat during the winter that are better for you, what are things to eat during the summer that are better. And yeah, there's no one size fits all, and it's just like a way to help you enhance your thinking about like healing through food. And yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I didn't, any other modalities, but I think that might be it. And then I don't think sorry to keep going, but I don't even think I've talked about even acupuncture and like what that's used for and kind of what that entails. So like with acupuncture, you use very thin, like less than a hair needle size. So it's like they're very, very thin needles. And then those are placed onto acupuncture points like on the body that stimulate various things and can help with circulation, can help ease pain, can help balance hormones. So it's this like really complex, like intricate system that essentially these needles are placed to tell your body how to heal itself. So as these needles are in, things are going on in the body and your body's communicating things, and it's helping to heal and repair and send messages to the body about where to do it. And yeah, it's an incredibly powerful modality for people who need support for anxiety, sleep, digestion, like any type of chronic pain, hormonal changes, fertility support, menstrual pain, migraine, like the list goes on, like what this medicine helps, which I think is incredible.
I like really want to go try them all now. So
Yeah.
stay.
Yeah.
But I love learning about it, and I'm sure listeners will as well, because that's so interesting. But for your program, are there like things you have to get done before, I guess, graduation, or do you need like a certain number of people that you help treat through these
Mhm.
student clinics, or like hours or something, or like how does that work? What are the requirements involved for finishing your program?
Yeah, so on top of the actual like classroom learning classes, we have to complete, I think it's 70 clinic shifts. And so we need to see two patients for every shift. So essentially, it's, oh gosh, girl math. I'm 40. That was an easy one. We have to see, yeah, about 140 patients. I think it might have been a little, they lowered that a bit because of the pandemic. So maybe it's something like 100. I have to see 100 patients to graduate. But that's really the only requirements. My particular program, like they require that we do these comprehensive exams at the end of each year in order to like move on. So luckily I'm done with those, thank goodness. And all that's left is just like finishing my clinic hours. And then once I graduate, actually, this doesn't have to do with school, but just my like licensure. I have to take the California board exam to get licensed in the state of California. And then I'm also going to be taking this exam called Nationals, which allows you to practice in other states as well. So once I'm done with school, then I'll be studying to complete those. I'm going to focus on the board because I'm going to practice in California first and then work my way to completing the other exams. You get like 5 years from when you graduate to finish them. So then I can practice in other states if I end up moving. So,
Oh, okay. Is there like one test for all other states, or is
yes,
it okay?
thank goodness. For whatever reason, California has its own.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah. Uh
Oh
huh.
my gosh.
Yeah.
Wait, do you think it's like more common here than other places? Like, why do you think that would be?
Totally. No, it is. It is
Okay.
much more common here than other places. Probably just because we have more people here and more people that are, for whatever reason, more interested into like
Yeah.
a holistic like mindset or like framework of living. Maybe it has something to do with the sun, the coast, the, I don't know, the California vibe, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
That's really interesting. Okay, now the burning question. So you have mentioned that like you plan to have your own practice one day and you're thinking about how you could start your business. So I'm really curious, what does that look like for you, and how do you get guidance on that, or are you making it up as you go?
Huh. Wow. Yeah. To be honest, I am making it up as I go. I am just like learning by doing. Like that is my like motto this year is I like so much like have held on and I still deal with it. Perfectionism, like trying to make something perfect before I do it. And that gets you absolutely nowhere. You just end up not doing anything
Mhm.
because you get scared that it's not going to be the best that it can be. And yeah, not that I'm going to still strive for that, but I've released a lot of my needing to like control and make something perfect before I can release it or do something with it. But I think also at this stage, like I am looking for a mentor. I have other students in the program with me now that we kind of are that for each other. Like we all have different skills from our previous careers that can help each other. So one of my like very close friends, she owns her own yoga practice and yoga business, and so she's actually like helping me with the business side of like, okay, this is how we're setting up the LLC. This is how you're going to get a bookkeeper and you need a financial planner, and these are the things that you need to consider and get all of your like finances in order and create stuff. And then I have another friend who, not in the program with me specifically, but just like friends, close friends of mine who are graphic designers, like Rachel, obviously, people who can help me with website creation, social media content, and branding. So thinking about that piece as well. And then, but yeah, I think I want a high level, like sort of like business coach or business mentor. So I am looking for that person, but I do not have it yet. And that's okay. Like, even if I don't need that to get things done with my business, I'm just going to figure it out. And I think that's just a key thing of someone who is looking to start a business or who is an entrepreneur, is like, you just have to figure it out. You just have to do it. You just have to try. And someone can even tell you what to do, can tell you all the things to do, but yeah, I think there's something really important about learning those things on your own. And it's totally scary. It's a lot. It's going to be a lot of that this year, and it's going to have to push me out of my comfort zone. And I need to get in that uncomfortable space. I think that that's important. And then a year from now, I'm going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe I know how to do all of this stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I think I'm going to kind of figure it out as I go.
Yeah.
And lean on my like community around me and friends who do things that I might need like insight or help with.
Yeah, that's so relatable. I feel like I get so overwhelmed. I'm trying to treat the podcast as a business because it absolutely could be one. But I think I get so overwhelmed with all the different aspects and like which one should I outsource and like which one should I really invest in learning myself and like all these things. But it's nice that you have people with different skill sets around you. That's really cool. And one of the things I hope to achieve with the podcast is just connecting with people with different skill sets in general and like learning from them and then spreading that knowledge. But I was also going to say, if you are looking for a business coach, just one suggestion, and I have interviewed Rachel's friend Sage. I don't know if you've probably met her or heard of her.
Yes. Yeah, I love seeing.
Yeah, but I have an interview with her if you want to learn about what she does. And then I also she's helped me a little bit, which has been nice.
Amazing. Okay. Yeah. No, I know I'm a bit familiar with what she does, but I should listen and then see. Yeah. That's a really good idea.
So I just have two more questions. So one of them is like, I feel like finances are like a big hump to get over, whether it be mentally or just like literally, you need that to get started in any capacity, especially as you're moving less away from what you used to do that would provide for your life and more towards this new thing that might take a really long time to get up off the ground. So I was wondering if you could share a little bit about how you handled that. It sounds like you worked part-time for a while, and that's like amazing that you were able to do that. But just like how you approached that whole thing when you were deciding to do this program and then going forward, did you have like money saved up, or like how does that work for you, I guess?
I feel like it was accumulation of things that I had to consider, because also even considering like leaving the salary that I had at the time, going from that to like actually no money, that was truly terrifying, like absolutely terrifying. But it's so funny because even people like friends of mine that I know make a lot of money, everyone still complains about money, or just like feeling like they don't have enough. So then that really changed my mind about like, okay, I think like no matter how much money, I mean, probably not like the 100 millionaires, but everyone is going to have like things that they still like struggle with, no matter what the amount of money is that they have. And so, yeah, it just made me think like, this is going to be a short amount of time that like in the grand scheme of things, that like I'm gonna have to pay a lot of attention to the money that I am spending. And yes, I have to use all of my savings, which that's what happened. I had to use all of my savings throughout that process. And I was also like lucky that to be like in a financial situation, like to have a job that I could like also have at the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a combination of those things. And I think just like also knowing that, yeah, like looking at it like an investment in like your future self, that always like really helped me like
Mhm.
get through. And I'm like, God, I just want to go shopping right now, but I really can't go shopping because I have to save that. Like this money that I could maybe go shopping with could actually be invested into my business and be invested into. So I just reframed like, okay, the money that I would have spent on this is actually now like going towards this, which is going to be for my business. And then, yeah, all those like little things that you think you need like money for are actually not important. Like my priorities were like totally changed and shifted. And so now I feel like like what I have budgeted and the money that I have put towards like school doesn't actually really feel like yeah, have nothing left because of that. I just shifted my priorities around and where I decided to like use my money. And yeah, and that comes with sacrifices. You probably can't go on a trip that you wanted, or you probably can't buy a new whatever.
Yeah.
But that's okay. That it's like it's only temporary, and like these things will come back. So I think it's like preparing for your future self, just like reminding yourself that. And so that's what like helps me when, especially thinking about like the money that I have.
Oh my gosh.
But
We hear you on that. I feel like a couple months ago, it's like it's like it wouldn't work. It's like I'm so attached to the things and the lifestyle that I have like reached
right,
because I'm working this like salary job, and it's just like it comes to a point where it's like you kind of have to choose to view it differently because it's going to take a lot longer, I think, maybe to maintain that lifestyle the entire way and build. It's
exactly.
almost like it's a shortcut to just shift the priorities, realize that spending your money towards this thing that could serve you in the future ultimately is like a faster way to get there. And it's just like releasing that attachment of those things that I felt like I used to need to have, like
Yes.
definitely clothes, trips, clothes. And but it's like I do feel like I reached a point where it's like if I'm going on this trip and I know what that's doing to like the money I have, I'm like not happy with that decision. So that makes it a lot easier because it's like
Yeah.
I'd rather have that money. It just the more clear it gets, the easier I think it is to be like, okay,
Totally. And it's also not to say that you can't do those things either. Like you can, I still figure out ways to do that. But yeah, and it's not going to be done like perfect. Like I totally could have put my money, saved my money better, put it to better use. And I can't even say that I'm like perfect. And every single time that I made a decision of is this money going towards like my future self or like this shirt. But I bought the shirt a lot.
me
So
too. Me too.
so yeah, it's hard. Money's a hard it's really hard because it's just like no doubt like do we need it to survive and so that we
Yeah.
can like live a lifestyle that like you feel like comfortable and can provide. And if you have like other people depending on you or
Mhm.
whatever your like literally whatever your circumstances are, like there's no doubt that like that is such a consideration. But I think, yeah, but again, it's just shifting even just like a little bit the
Yeah.
priorities of like where the money's going to. There's always like a place that you can yeah, kind of look at deeper. But yeah,
Yeah. But I'm happy to talk about this because I do think like it's been a block for me for a while and it's like finally clearing up a little bit. But I just want to wrap up by asking you, and you provide a lot of resources that I will link in the show notes for anyone interested in doing something similar. But any advice that you would give to someone maybe experiencing like health issues and curious about some of the things we talked about, and then maybe getting involved in that, doing that for their work one day. Also, just thinking about anything that you, knowing what you know now, might have done differently.
yeah. So I would say for people who are struggling with a health concern or they feel like they're not getting like the care that they need, to seek out an alternative medicine provider, whether that's a naturopath, whether that's an integrative medicine doctor, whether that's an acupuncturist. A lot of time, actually, like like my program, because we do Eastern medicine and integrative medicine, that we'll be able to address both things. So some acupuncturists like also can do like diagnostic lab testing for you. So if you know that you want to work with an acupuncturist, and you can Google like acupuncture and integrative medicine practitioners, or acupuncture and functional medicine practitioners, things like that. I think that that could be a good way to help get a different perspective on what's going on. And maybe you just have one session with someone and you end up paying, the $300 out of pocket to see them, and you see them once. But let's say they come back with a lot of really useful, helpful information and it helps change your life around. I think that that's worth like everything, especially if you feel like, you're kind of hitting a roadblock. And also acupuncture, like I said, like going to community acupuncture, going to an acupuncture college to get treatment, like that is a really affordable way to get care and to help address some of these like chronic or long-term, or you're just like lost, you don't really know where to begin. Those are good practitioners to work with, because we can then recommend other people based on what you come in with. If we think like maybe we can't help everything that you're working with, then we can refer you to people that we trust in the area. So I think that might be a nice place to start. And then for people interested in potentially pursuing a career in integrative medicine or in East Asian medicine, I would recommend researching the colleges in your area. And a lot of them have open house, like informational sessions. They typically let you sit in on a class. I would also recommend, if you start working with an acupuncturist and you feel really connected and called to do it, to try to shadow someone. I wish that I did that at the time. I just didn't have a close enough connection with someone that I felt like I could. But I felt like I got the information I needed by attending the open houses and sitting in on classes at the school that I now attend. And then just talk to people. I think curiosity is the best curiosity is the best quality someone can have, in my opinion. Don't be afraid to ask questions and to reach out to people and ask how they got to where they got in their life and what they would recommend. And yeah, so ask people questions, reach out to people, reach out to the schools in the area, and yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you for the great advice and guidance and for your time today. That was such a lovely interview and like so educational about something that I really did not know a lot about. So thank you.
Oh, I love being here. This is so great.